We recorded this podcast a few weeks ago on the day that George Floyd was killed, and during the editing process I messaged the others who appear on this recording to say would they mind if I said something about Black Lives Matter, and they all unsurprisingly agreed. So we just want to say, as hosts of this podcast, that we think that Black Lives matter. Not that Black lives are more important than any other colour lives, but that right now, when Black lives are under more threat, we want to say that Black Lives Matter. On that sombre note, we will go on to our podcast. This was a bit of a mammoth edit. Various points things went out of sync, so I have tried my best to make this match up. There might be the odd point where somebody says something slightly out of sync. Do please bear with that. Other than that, on with the show. Hello and welcome to this episode of the UFOcast as Doctor Who. This is the second part of our first Doctor World Cup. And we have our guest who couldn't make it last time joining us. She will introduce herself last. But for now, I'm Luke.
Hi, Michael.
And I'm Tony.
And, I'm Siobhan. Hello.
Hello, Siobhan.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're joining us to talk about the First Doctor.
I'm old, I'm crumbling, and I've been podcasting for donkey's years. We're now live on Twitch, she said, putting a plug, /McFadden, if you go to Twitch, and then it's onto YouTube. Bibble Thrusters, the channel. It's spelt like it sounds. So now I've got that plug in. Thanks very much, guys. I'm off. Sorry, you want something about the First Doctor, don't you?
Yes, the First Doctor. Why are you talking? Why do you think that did I invite you to talk to us about the First Doctor?
I sort of got a little bit of notoriety because apparently I do a very good William Hartnell impersonation. I don't hear it myself. I just hear me when I listen back to it. So I always think that other people are just basically being kind.
It's very good.
Thank you.
It is very good.
I might break it out later.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No. That would be. I was going to say it wouldn't be a First Doctor thing with you without some impersonation. So we look forward to it.
Okay, good. By the way, Luke, have you still got my golden knob knacker?
I do still have your
for me.
I think you'll find it's my golden knob knacker. Yes. Those of you with long memories and who are listeners of the Staggering Stories podcast will remember that too many years ago than I care to remember, Siobhan and I had a showdown on a boat. And
it sounds far grander than it was.
I know. And I won that quiz. It was hard fought.
It was very hard.
And the prize, thanks to Dean Hill, was a fake Lego Amy Pond sprayed gold and glued to a bit of marble, which sits on my shelf. But given that I'm currently lending my office to our lodger, I can't show it to you.
Oh dear.
Happy memories. Anyway, so before we dive into where we're at with the groups, because Siobhan has sent me her scores and things have changed slightly, we just had one thing to talk about, which we forgot to talk about last week, and that was that Doctor Who magazine had this slight idiosyncratic way of referring to the first three William Hartnell stories, in that they call An Unearthly Child 100,000 BC, they call the Daleks the mutants, though they tend to clarify that it's the Daleks to avoid confusion with the Pertwee story that was called the mutants, and then Edge of Destruction is inside the spaceship. And I certainly think that An Unearthly Child and Edge of Destruction would have done better in their poll had they been named as such. Because I think some people on Twitter would have seen those stories and gone 100,000 BC. I don't know that one. I'm not going to vote for that one. What do we think?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Because DWM have stuck with these names for a good many years now, but they're so pedantic, these names. You know, it's a case of, look, we've gone back to the earliest possible production note history thingy, and it sort of says there, man with box, that's what we're going to call it. They are rather pedantic with it, and to most people, it's an unearthly child. The Daleks and Age of Destruction, isn't it?
Yeah, my view is if the BBC changed the DVD covers to 100,000 BC, the mutants brackets, the Daleks close brackets, and inside the spaceship, then we can call them that. But as the DVDs are all called An Unearthly Child, the Daleks, and Edge of Destruction, it seems bizarrely pedantic of DWM to stick to their.
The only argument that could even remotely go against that would be to break up An Unearthly Child, single first episode, and the other 3 parts of that DVD story into separate stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that would be it. Everything else, not a problem.
Cool. Well, we've got that out of the way. And in our version of this competition, all 3 of those stories have made it through to the knockout stage. Hurrah! So let's just fill in listeners on what's changed. So groups A, C, E, and G, all the odd-numbered groups, have not changed. So Siobhan is largely in line with us, or hasn't swung anything enough. Group B, Dalek's master plan has overtaken the Aztecs. They were level on points, but we've gone with the rule that whichever story got the most 4s goes through top. So because Siobhan loves the Dalek's master plan, and you can talk about that when we get to the knockout stage, that's now going through top. And the story that I wasn't a big fan of last week, Siobhan has given 4, so Dalek Invasion of Earth now scrapes through in Group D at the expense of Keys and Marinus. And 10th Planet now tops Group F ahead of the Space Museum, and we have resolved who wins Group H, and that is the Romans, which Siobhan and Tony and I have all given 4 points to.
I can see the scores. I'm ashamed, but it still got through.
Before we move on to the knockout stage, Siobhan, just give us a little bit about the stories that you would have wanted to go through but didn't make it. So that is The Crusade, Planet of Giants, and The Three Doctors. Those are the 3 stories that you scored 3 points to that aren't making it through. So, because we're not going to get to talk about them again.
The Crusade is Doctor Who's version of Shakespeare. You've got a wonderful king in Julian Glover. You've got Ian being knighted, being sent on a mission. And the dialogue is so rich. And am I right? You'll have to correct me. I'm sure some of it's in iambic pentameter. It's a lovely story. It's a shame we don't have the missing 2 parts, but what there is just lovely. I love that one. Planet of Giants. I like this one. 3-part works for it, and I just think the sheer skill of the scenery designers and builders to actually create that environment, the telephone, the sink, absolutely magnificent. So yeah, I do appreciate it. And as for the 3 Doctors, well, I've got to admit I wasn't really going to do anything with the multi-Doctor stories because I didn't think it would be right. You know, most people, 9 times out of 10, most people will say, well, the 3 Doctors is really a Pertwee story, the 5 Doctors, Davison, etc. But I love the 3 Doctors deeply. And I will admit, the War Machines had to top because it was Hartnell's, a pure Hartnell story. And the Ark's got the security kitchen. Galaxy 4... well, Galaxy 4 sort of exists-ish. But if I was going to do anything for one of the comeback, it would be the 3 Doctors. Just to salute the old man.
Cool. Right. Thanks for that, Siobhan. So
That was
we
horrifically
now
serious.
move. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good stuff. So we move on to the knockout stage of the competition. So the first round of the last 16 pits the Mythmakers against the Aztecs. If we'd got through this last week when there were 3 of us, this would have been easy because odd number of people means you're always going to get a winner. Now that there's 4 of us, it might be that on some of these we have a draw and we'll have to somehow resolve those ties at the end of the round. So, I will go to Tony first. Which of these two would you put through to the next round, and why?
This is a slight nightmare for me, in that it's an all historical and two very good stories that I like quite a lot. But I'm going to go for the Mythmakers, because maybe it's over familiarity with the Aztecs, but the Mythmakers is definitely the Hartnell story I would like to see recovered the most. I think it's a very funny story. Hartnell seems to be enjoying himself in it. There are many good performances from many actors, and I just want to see the Trojan horse properly. The Aztecs is great. I'm not knocking the Aztecs. I like the Aztecs quite a lot, but I have grown to like it slightly less over time. I like Hartnell in it. I like the Coco and Barbara, and Barbara is astonishing in it. But for some reason, every time I watch it, I kind of slightly enjoy it less. Not by a huge amount. I still enjoy it. But yeah, the Mythmakers for me on this one.
Are you absolutely sure about that? Because you're not going to be able to come back later. You're not going to be able to change history, not one line.
Yes, I'm sticking to my guns.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
It should be my Obsidian Club.
Michael, I know this is not your happy zone anyway, because we've already established you're not a big fan of historicals,
No,
but which of these two would you
it's
put
not,
through?
But, the Aztecs got some great moments, but lousy hours, as they say. It's just not my cup of tea. I want to experience. I've got a really big soft spot for Greek myths. Stick me down in front of Ulysses 31. I'm, a happy little camper. I just love my Greek myths, but I'm being honest. I've not actually seen it, and nobody else has. So I'm just going off novelizations, off rumour, off what I've read about it. And that's not fair. So my brain's going, but vote. My brain is saying vote for the Aztecs, but my heart's saying Mythmakers, because I just want it so badly. I want to be proven wrong. I want to say to the world, no, this is fantastic. Yes, it's meant to be a comedy, but nobody cares, and it's got a massive Trojan horse in it. What more do you need? So, yeah, for me, Mythmakers.
Siobhan?
I honestly don't know how I can add to anything that Tony and Michael have said. It's very, very funny. And whereas the Aztecs it's Doctor Who's first proper journey into history. So it's taken very seriously, apart from the Coco incident. And the line that... No, sorry, I'm mixing that up with Marco Polo. I do apologise. You can cut that bit. The Aztecs is a bit po-faced for me. The Mythmakers is righteous, and I would love to see it, so chuck a point in there.
So it's slightly moot at this point, because as you'll have gathered, that's 3-0 to the Mythmakers at this point. I'm gonna throw my hat in for the Aztecs, purely on the basis that I think it's possibly the first Hartnell that I watched on VHS. And so I have a soft spot for it, and it has happy memories of watching it with my family. And I don't think I've ever tired of watching the story. And whilst I agree with you guys that the Mythmakers is a great story, I wish some of these matchups were happening later in the competition. Because there are other stories that I don't think should be here, but we can get to that. So I'm going to say Aztecs over Mythmakers, but I recognise that the Mythmakers is a great story, and I'm happy to see it go through to the next round. Moving on to the second match of our knockout stage. This is the Daleks' Master Plan against the Web Planet, and I'm going to come to Siobhan first to give her vote on this one.
The Daleks' Master Plan's got everything you want. It's got Daleks, lots and lots of Daleks, and they're not the comedy Daleks from The Chase. These are evil little buggers. They really, really are. And you've got a Dalek Supreme that's just this side of total madness. The way he says Marvik Chen, It's just marvellous performance. And the monk comes back, so you've got the comedy there as well. And it's nice to have some things. I think the monk's the second only recurring character, for want of a better phrase, after the Daleks. Suddenly somebody else has popped up again. And Doctor Who's starting to build its own story, its own history that way. You've got a great villain in Marvick Chen. All right. I don't think much of the whole yellow face thing they did with him, quite frankly. But it's of its time. And it's a marvellous performance. No, it's just really good, solid Doctor Who. It's probably the best Dalek story, and I include the Daleks in that. And as for the Web Planet, it's fun up to a point, then you fall asleep. That's about all I've got to say there.
So Siobhan gives it a point. So Dalek's Master Plan is currently winning. Tony?
I suspect this is going to be an early consolation goal, but I'm going to vote for the Web Planet for purely consistent purposes because it is one of my favourite Doctor Who stories of all time. And
it had to be somebody's.
Yeah. And I know, as I said in the previous recording, I know it has issues. I know it's too long. I know some people find it very difficult to listen to, let alone watch. But I love it so much. I love the ambition of it. I love the attempt to do a genuinely alien world with genuine aliens on a budget that can't possibly do it. But I love the fact that they tried.
It makes us wonder what it would have been like.
It's got two or three of the best scenes in it. I think of that get overlooked a lot because it's the Web Planet. But the scene where Barbara watches the wings be taken off. I can't remember which one it is. One of the Menoptera. That is played so straight and so that it's genuinely quite horrific. And there's a couple of other scenes like that in the story, and I love it. And I know I'm in a minority on it, and this is annoying because again I really like the Dalek Master Plan, and part of me thinks it's the Daleks. Maybe I should, but it's an epic, and perhaps I should. But no, I'm going to stick to my guns and vote for the Web Planet.
It'd be interesting to see what it would have been like watching it in 1965 on the tiny little black and white TV. Yeah. That could change an opinion. The other thing about the Web Planet is it's an amazing novelisation.
And I think you'd struggle to do it now, even with special effects, and because the budget would be huge.
Yeah. They tried with End of the World.
Yes.
That sort of came close.
Yeah. But I think they were doing stuff in that first Christopher Eccleston season that they probably wouldn't do again. Maybe?
Yeah, like hire an actor who wouldn't stay for a year.
Ooh, he's still sore. After all these years.
Oh, you've no idea. I'm very good at holding a grudge. I've got the Web Planet versus Master Plan. Now, we covered my dislike of some of the costumes and the Universal Council of nonsense and all of that business, but you've got your Varga plants, you've got your episode without the Doctor, all in its favour. But then the Web Planet, I'm back to normal because it's like it's really pushing the boundaries. It's the closest Doctor Who ever comes to being lost in space. And it demonstrates how different it is from other programmes because of its approach. I love the bit with the pen. The stupid voices and the migraine-inducing noises don't go in its favour. But I've got really good memories of getting the VHS out of Newcastle Central Library when they were selling off their old stock because nobody wanted to watch them anymore. And you could buy the VHS for like £1.50 for a double, and getting it home and putting it in and just being kind of going, what on hell am I watching? But then I couldn't look away. So my vote for this one, it's going to be the Web Planet.
Oh God, Luke, come on, step up, man.
I so do. It's the Web Planet. Luke. I'm going for it.
Represent, man.
Oh man,
pressure.
right, okay. I'm definitely not going to keep going last because I don't want to be the person in this position every time. And this is the bit where it becomes really difficult for me to not default to the novelization. For a lot of these, particularly ones that are missing. Like I have heard the soundtracks for all the missing stories, but I have probably read those stories more than I've listened to them.
Is that an eligible criteria?
Well, so we said last time we were trying to judge, and we'll get to this in the next one as well. We're trying to judge them purely on the TV version, which is difficult when Master Plan is. Well, when I first became a fan, it was a sixth there. It's now a quarter there. But I think I'm going to have to make this a tie, and we'll have to defer to the end of the round to resolve this. I think it has to be Master Plan, just because of the scope of it, that it's so many different things. Nicholas Courtney's brilliant in it. It's a shame he doesn't last as long. Jean Marsh is fantastic in it, and you're right, Siobhan. It has the monk returning, and I love the monk as a character, and it's a shame that they never brought him back again. Also, why is he still a monk? Why isn't he the meddler? But anyway, that's another thing.
It's an ongoing thing with Big Finish audios.
Well, yes.
You know,
so if
everyone
we're
calls
into
him a
Big
monk,
Finish,
and he says, "You wear a habit one time."
Yeah. And I admire the ambition of the Web Planet. But I think it's got to be Master Plan for me.
I do have a slight solution.
Ooh, thumb wrestling.
Well, no, I was thinking
Socially
it's
distanced.
Luke's show.
Ah,
It's like he's the Len Goodman.
No, I think what we'll say is if
put it all on him.
If
I
think if there are more draws as we go, ideally, if there were 4 draws, then we could each tip the balance in one or the other. But I think we'll see what happens as we go through the round, and depending on how many draws we get at the end, depends on who gets to veto and put things through. But for now, we'll leave that one at 2-2 and resolve it later. So, on to match number 3, and I'm going to kick this one off. This is An Unearthly Child against the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Now, those of you who listened to the first part will know that although I enjoy the Dalek Invasion of Earth as a story, the TV version of it is the third best version of it, in that it's tedious and not badly directed. It's overambitious for a TV studio and ends up being a bit dull, apart from the film stuff. I know Siobhan's going to come back at me on this one. And An Unearthly Child is the thing that kicked it off. The first episode is magnificent, absolutely magnificent, one of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever. And the caveman stuff is nowhere near as rubbish as people make out. I really enjoy the whole story, not just that first episode. The sort of scheming political caveman machinations of Tsar and Cal.
Fire will destroy us all.
Yes, and the sort of fledgling relationships between the Doctor and his companions. It's just really, really nicely played in that first story. So for me, it has to be An Unearthly Child. Siobhan.
I totally agree.
But you scored Dalek Invasion of Earth a 4 in the group stage, so I was expecting you to come back at me on Dalek Invasion of Earth.
The Dalek Invasion of Earth. It's responsible, just talking personally, it's responsible for sort of many burnt-in images from small childhood, like the Daleks in front of Westminster. Now, I didn't see that on telly. That was from a photo somewhere, very probably the 10th anniversary special, All Hail the Radio Times. Sorry, it feels like that when you say the 10th anniversary special. It's like the holy of holies. It's okay, but it does drag, and it is very overambitious. There's no two ways about it. An Unearthly Child is the most important story in Doctor Who. Actually, no. No, I don't think it is. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm thinking out loud here. It's a very good story, and it's the perfect way to actually introduce the concepts to people. So much so that Russell T Davies went back and essentially did it again with Rose. You see everything through the companion's eye, or the prospective companion's eyes, and you learn about it as the companion does. That's great. The caveman stuff it's just played for real. It's played very seriously, and indeed there's stuff in it that there's no way in hell they'd allow on television nowadays. The fight scene especially. No, I love An Unearthly Child, and I will never. If it's put up against something like the Dalek Invasion of Earth, that'll always win.
Okay, Michael.
Well, it's because Unearthly Child is so important. It has to be that one. Yeah, Dalek Invasion of Earth. It's the second time you've seen the Daleks. But like you said, it's not the best version of the story. But if you forget that the other versions exist, it's still a cracking story. It's really well executed. It's one of those things that if you look too closely at it, you go, what? I mean, they had to create that whole stolen Earth thing in order to justify the Daleks mining in Bedfordshire in the first place. Because for, 40 odd years we'd gone, yeah, but why? Really? But why though? No. Yeah, why were you doing that? And it just made no sense. And they had to create a whole new backstory just to make it palatable. And on Unearthly Child, you just go, yeah, but that's because it's this first story. I'm not that bothered about the cavemen. Yes, I know there's the whole Hartnell tries to club someone with and then he goes, oh no, maybe I won't. And that's meant to be his like emotional awakening because the companions make him human. I get all that. But it's I'd query that story.
I'd query that. Oh yeah, I'd say that was Edge of Destruction. That happens in a good tongue lashing from Barbara Wright.
Well, let's leave that there then. And
sorry.
Is that a deleted scene? Yeah. So yeah, for me, Unearthly Child. It's got to be. But that's only because it's an extremely strong battle between the two. This could easily have been the final.
Sorry, Michael.
Okay. Well, it's a dead rubber now. But Tony, where is your vote going to go on this round?
An Unearthly Child.
Well, it's warped
make it a 4-0 thrashing.
It's warped it.
There are some good things about the Dalek Invasion of Earth. The London scenes in particular, the sort of bleakness of it, tonally, until the end when sort of hope wins over. But An Unearthly Child, the first episode, is one of the greatest pieces of television ever made.
Yeah.
And I really like the 3 caveman episodes that follow. I think they're much, as you say, I think they're much better than everybody gives them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
All the performances are great in it because everybody plays it straight. They don't act like they're in some low-rent TV series. They act like they're playing Macbeth. And I think it works because of that. So, yeah, easily Unearthly Child.
Okay, right. Well, that was easy. Moving swiftly on to match number 4, which pits the following 2 stories from An Unearthly Child against each other. So this is The Edge of Destruction against the Daleks. Tony, we'll come to you first.
I'm gonna have to go for the Daleks. For similar reasons to An Unearthly Child. It's the introduction of the Daleks. It's very well acted by everybody concerned. It's at the point in the series as well where you don't know if everybody's going to make it. So there is a genuine sense of threat when everybody gets sick from radiation sickness, that they might actually kill off 1 or 2 of them because you don't know at that point that that's not what they're going to do. The Daleks look amazing. The city design is superb. It's a bit long, but as I say, a lot of 60 stories are too long by modern standards. But and I say that because I really like the Edge of Destruction. I think and I'm a big fan of sort of quirkier, more interesting stories. But I think you have to go to the Daleks on this one.
Okay, Michael.
When we see Daleks over Edge of Destruction 2 episodes, Daleks has got that. Well, it's the Daleks. There you go. That's your answer. You've just got. I mean, if it's a football analogy, we're after the Daleks is a stronger team. You're seeing them early on. Edge of Destruction, it's something that was being brought in at the last minute. They do a really good job with what they've got. Lovely bit of atmosphere, but your Daleks is Terry Nation showing us what he does best early on, so he's not repeating himself. Big fan of the Daleks as a story. I just like it. Edge of Destruction, I didn't see it until it was on DVD, and it just passed me by, and I genuinely did enjoy it. But if you're battling one against the other, it's got to be the Daleks.
Fair enough. Siobhan?
It's the Daleks for me as well, I'm afraid. Edge of Destruction was... I could have got this wrong. I will defer to better minds than mine. But it was a hurried replacement script, wasn't it, to fill up a space? And using only the sets they had, which was the TARDIS set. I could be wrong there.
My recollection is that it went into production at the point where they didn't know they were going to get more than 13 episodes. So it had to be 2 episodes long. And I think once it was in production, they knew they were going to be moving on to Marco Polo and so on. But at the time it was there, David Whittaker had to write a 2-episoder to fill out that first order of 13 episodes.
It didn't.
It's limited by those stipulations, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. It's and having 2 directors didn't help. When you're trying to act as if you've been concussed or whatever, to have a change in directors, that can't have helped. The thing about the Daleks is, it's what saved the program, isn't it? It's that simple. It's the most important Dalek story there's been, and I'm not retracting on that one. And the one thing I love about it, apart from everything you've already said about the visuals and about the performances, I love the soundscape. Tristan Carey's music and Brian Hodgson's sound. They just sell this. Now, the thing is, if you look at something like Out of the Unknown, which I'm not sure it's a contemporary of the Daleks or just comes slightly later, there is a certain cheapness to it. Whereas the Daleks, somehow they pulled a miracle out. And it just doesn't feel like... It doesn't feel like another episode of BBC Science Fiction. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's the Daleks for me.
Well, it's another clean sweep then, because I'm also voting for the Daleks on this one. Because although... because I admire what the Edge of Destruction does with what it has... It's an interesting idea, and it's a great piece that moves the characters forward, as you alluded to, Siobhan. But then it has things like fast return switch in felt tip pen, and the Doctor explaining a spring to Susan, which I know there's an educational remit to the show, but the whole of the first episode of An Unearthly Child kind of established that she was like really clever at science. So the fact that she doesn't understand how a spring works 2 stories later, it just sort of undermines the whole thing.
It's the Edge of Destruction's got the first Bill soliloquy.
Yes, and that is lovely. That is lovely.
It's lovely.
Yes, there's some lovely moments in it, but I think that it's a bit hit and miss. Whereas the Daleks, I think, as you've all said. Go on, Tony.
And as Siobhan said, I think The Edge of Destruction is a very important story in how the Doctor develops as a character.
Yes.
Because it is the story where he gets told off by Barbara.
Yes.
And he kind of suddenly realises that he needs to be less of a pain in the arse.
Yeah. No, and I agree with all that, but I think I side with all the 3 of you in saying that the Daleks has to win this one because of how significant it is, and just for that, it is a good story, and I think more than some 7-parters, it does just about sustain its length. And particularly if you watch it one episode at a time, as with all these 60 stories, I think it works. Even with William Russell gripping onto a polystyrene rock, his acting sells that cliffhanger. So yeah, Daleks goes through. Right, moving on. I'm going to kick this one off. We have match 5, the Time Meddler against the Space Museum. So the Time Meddler was basically in the Doctor Who magazine Twitter poll. Once the Romans had got knocked out, the Time Meddler was basically there to avenge the Romans, in my mind. And I do like the Time Meddler a lot. But I don't. I think I'm going to have to be a little contrary and put and say the Space Museum.
Well, so tell us. Okay.
Well, I talked
about the Space Museum that puts it over it.
Yes. So I talked a little bit about the Space Museum in the last podcast, Siobhan. I mean, the first episode of the Space Museum is just wonderful. And yes, I think you can say that the rest of the story slightly lets down that promise, in the way that there are any number of stories that you can go. It had a blindingly good first episode, and then it didn't quite live up to the promise of that. And I think this is probably true of the Space Museum, but I do think, in the same way that An Unearthly Child sometimes comes in for unfair flack for its cavemen episodes, I think that if you view the rest of the Space Museum as a bit of a comedy, it really works, and Vicky gets to be brilliant in it.
That's true.
Absolutely brilliant in it. And Hartnell is clear. I mean, I suppose Hartnell's also having a whale of a time in the Time Meddler as well. So maybe you shouldn't go on which of these two is Hartnell having more fun in. But the scene where Lobos interrogates Hartnell is one of my favourite Hartnell moments of all time. It's just hilarious. And as we were talking about last week with the comparison with Herndl in the Five Doctors, you have that kind of plays into that myth that Hartnell's Doctor is this crotchety old man, and there's so much of him just laughing and enjoying himself as he goes through his adventures. And the Space Museum has one of those moments. Also, increasingly, I'm just bored of Time Lords. And I know that you can't kind of pin that all on the Time Meddler. It's the War Games onwards that you kind of have all this kind of backstory and lore that gets loaded onto the show. But increasingly, what I love about the Hartnell era is there's just very little backstory. There's just the Doctor and his companions adventuring through time and space. And so this is a first step in putting that backstory in, and part of me just wishes they'd never gone there. Siobhan,
I think it was inevitable, don't you?
I know. I mean, I yes, of course it was inevitable. Of course it was inevitable. But one of the reasons I'll say it again. One of the reasons I'm very happy in the Hartnell era is just because it's so free of all that baggage that would come later.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Time Meddler is one of those reminders that of what was to come. So that's me. I'm voting for the Space Museum.
I think that's a bit unfair. I
know that I'm
You're
jumping
blaming
very
it
hard on
for
one.
the sins of its children.
No, I'm jumping very hard on one end of a seesaw in this. I agree, and partly because I suspect that all of you are going to redress the balance. Siobhan.
Let's see. Okay, I'm going for the Time Meddler. It's a fun romp. Hartnell is on fire, and that's because of Peter Butterworth. His performance is just a joy to watch, and Hartnell just raises his game to match it. And then you've got that oh so important cliffhanger. The monk has a TARDIS. Now imagine what that must have been like. If you're a regular viewer, you've been watching Doctor Who for 2 years. Remember, that's what, nearly 100 episodes. And suddenly this happens. That must have been mind-blowing for people. So for me, it is the Time Meddler over the Space Museum. The Space Museum, yes, episode 1 is amazing. But the rest of it does end up just being a silly runaround, I'm afraid. So Time Meddler for me.
That's fair. That's fair. Tony?
Time Meddler. For many of the reasons Siobhan's already outlined. Also, but yeah, Hartnell seems having a ball, and it features two of the best Hartnell, like sort of one. Well, one of them isn't really a one-liner. One of them is
Getting a
and there's a
Luke.
panda.
Okay.
And what do you think it is? A space helmet for a cow? Actually, Siobhan should have done that line. She'd do it much better than I would.
Yes, well, I'm not a mountain goat, and I prefer walking to any day, and I hate climbing.
And it's funny. Peter Butterworth is brilliant. The monk is and I see what you're saying about sort of Time Lords, but because there's so little, the only thing you know about the monk is that he's of a similar he's similar to the Doctor, and he has a TARDIS, so you don't get any other baggage. Really. So I think, and also the monk is. I like the monk because he's a Time Lord that's not trying to destroy the entire universe. He's just trying to have some fun. So I like that part of it. The Space Museum, the first episode, as we all know, is brilliant. It's very timey-wimey, to use a more up-to-date modern phrase. The 3 other episodes are fine, but I just don't think it's as good across the 4 episodes as the Time Meddler.
Sorry, Luke.
Also, as you said, Vicky's great in the Space Museum. She's probably the best thing in the Space Museum, but she's also brilliant in the Time Meddler.
Right, Michael, are you going to go for the crown, or are you going to make this a draw?
Well, in the interest of building suspense, no, I can't be bothered. It's going to be... Right, I'm going to end up saying the Time Meddler, but I do need to say that Space Museum's got a lot going for it. Genuinely has. Like you said, the timey-wimey stuff, but I like the Time Meddler for exactly the reasons that you said you didn't. Because when I was a kid, I was just there going, more Time Lord nonsense, just need more people with collars, need to find out more about the past. Where the background, I'm a complete background junkie. When it comes to monsters, the first thing that pops into my head is how to defeat them. I just want to know everything about somebody's past. Only in fiction, I couldn't care less about real life. But in fiction, I want to know everything about someone's, their motivation.
You must have loved Lance Parkin's The History.
Yeah.
The way that put everything together. I'm totally with you on this. The way everything fits together and the history. I'm completely with you. That's my favourite part of the program.
Yeah, I know. But when I was a kid, that's what I was. I was completely fixated on Time Lords. And that's what I wanted to know. And then I saw the Time Meddler. And, best of all, and this has nothing to do with anybody else here, it's a story set in Northumberland. And you don't get that in Doctor Who,
yes,
right?
That's true.
It's the furthest.
That is very true.
There's this one, and then there's what was it? The Sylvester McCoy story with the Haemovores. They're the most Whitby Northeast Northumberland end of things that you get in Doctor Who. Now I know Big Finish have explained this away with a massive Cthulhu type monster underneath the north of England, protecting it from all of the alien invasions. No, Doctor Who just couldn't be bothered to do. Oh yeah, I'll send you the link.
Please do.
Yeah,
I have not come across that one.
But yeah, that's why it was always the southern counties of England that got invaded. But I was a big fan of this story in general. And like I said, it's Northumbria. What more do you need? I love the whole anachronistic stuff, and the way that Rufus Hound and I think it's Graham Garden have taken the monk on in other incarnations. Just brilliant. He could have been just a one-hit thing. He could have just been Butterworth, but Rufus Hound's made him his own. I love the character, genuinely do. So yeah, for me, between the two, gotta be my first experience of Hartnell again. It's going to be, Time Meddler.
Yay.
We move on to match 6 of this round, which is the 10th planet against the Rescue. Siobhan.
Oh,
Yeah.
me up first. Okay. The Rescue's nice. It's interesting watching Hartnell's performance with Maureen O'Brien as he slowly... It's actually quite sad. He basically replaces Susan in his affections with Vicky. It's sad, but poor old Cocky Licking. The most obvious villain in the world of villains, whereas the 10th planet is brilliant. It's the first proper use of a multinational setting, which they tried to do in the mid to late 60s. And Jerry Davis and Kit Pedler scripts especially, you'll notice that the base staff are from all over the place, and that's lovely. And it introduces the whole thing of, again, just that little bit more history building, International Space Command. And then, of course, there's the Cybermen, who, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, I don't think they've ever been bettered than here. They are the best Cybermen going. They freak the hell out of me. And Bill, even though it's his last show, and he was ill certainly he must have been ill to record that second episode, just not ill enough to not have to work. It gives a raging performance. And then there's also the marvellous line of, "I don't like your face, Grandad," which you got to love. And do I have to mention the regeneration? Can you imagine what that must have been like sat there? Like I said before, you're seeing the Monk's TARDIS for the first time. Imagine this. What the hell's going on? It's, it's got to be the 10th planet.
Tony.
10th planet. I have a soft spot for the Rescue. As Siobhan said, the villain is so obvious, it's unbelievable. But there are some nice touches to it. I like Ian and Barbara in it. I like Vicky from the off.
She's lovely.
And it's fine as it goes. It's a nice little two-parter, and it does the job it's set out to do, which is to introduce the new companion. The 10th planet, though, I mean, I'm not a massive 10th planet fan. I have said before on Twitter that I don't think the TV series does Cybermen stories very particularly well in comparison, particularly with, say, Big Finish. I think the 10th planet is one of the better ones. I quite like old school Cybermen with real human hands, and it makes them feel a bit more horrific than what comes after that, which is more science fiction-y. I like the I mean, effectively, is it the first base under siege story?
You could say that, yes. I think it's fair to say.
And I like the multinational aspect of it, although there isn't a terrible Italian accent in it.
Yes.
They
tried.
Yeah. And I really like Ben and Polly. And I think sometimes they get over, because I think so much of their stuff doesn't survive. I think sometimes they get overlooked as a companion pairing. But yeah, so I think it'll have to be the 10th planet. I'm not massively like, oh wow, great 10th planet, but it's of the two, it gets my vote.
Okay. I'm going to go next, and it's the Rescue for me. I mean, I think I covered this mostly last time. But a brief recap for Siobhan. I'm just not. I'm not a big Cybermen fan. And I'm not a big fan of stories where the Doctor's presence is largely superfluous. And although this is it's a momentous story as far as how it ends, I think it's a kind of story that ended up being done so much better in the Troughton era, which I suppose you can't condemn this one for being a trial run because they had to start somewhere. But yeah, when I think about it, I think about lots of little bits of it that I like. And I think Cutler's a brilliant base commander. And I like the multinational aspect of the cast, and Earl Cameron in particular is very significant. Massively significant.
Yes, you're quite right.
But overall, I think the 10th Planet is lauded because of its significance to the show. More than if it wasn't Hartnell's final story, I'm not sure it would be seen in the light that it is. And the rescue, I love. It's a nice little 2-part introduction to Vicky. It's got the lovely Stingray thing with Ray Barrett doing his 2 Stingray voices, which gives the game away, as I said last time. But there's also some real meat to the story. It's got the Doctor confronting Bennett and kind of calling him out for what he's done. And then because Vicky's left on her own, she joins the TARDIS, and I suppose I've just said 10th Planet gets more honor for the position it holds in the series history, but Vicky is the first time that we had a new companion, and if she hadn't been a success, I don't know where would we be. But she's brilliant. She knocks it out of the park, and she basically is the 4th member of my favourite TARDIS team. So the rescue it is for me.
Fair enough.
Well,
Michael.
Rescue, do like it. It's got some great moments. Vicky is brilliant, but she's always brilliant. But even although it's possibly one of my least favourite Cyberman stories, I can't stand the upside down world that comes onto the screen. That just does my head in. No, it turns up when you go, come on, you're trying not to be a kids show here, and that's just shoddy. That shouldn't have made it past any scripting. They should have gone, oh yeah, the Earth had another world. No, how can it be a parallel? That parallel? That's ridiculous. And then I became really pedantic later on going, well, what about the Silurians? How do they fit in? And is there a Silurian race on the cyber world? And
now you mention that. There was a marvellous comic strip in DWM.
Oh, I remember, and that made me feel better. But because I came to the 10th Planet really late, I wasn't in a great place with Hartnell at the time anyway. And it was like, yeah, it's got some great moments. I didn't like the design. I don't like the massive headlamps on the head. But it's got the regeneration. I don't like the hands. I really genuinely don't like being able to see the hands. Oh, everyone's going on about how scary and it's got loads of horror in it. No, it's just we couldn't be bothered to buy gloves. And
no, I would disagree. The actual description of the Cybermen was that the hands were supposed to be to give more of that, more of the body horror.
Okay. I know we did when I was in university, we did a massive module on body horror and the way that it evolved throughout time and the way that different current horror aspects were played out, and everyone was into organ transplantation and all of that business. It just didn't really do it for me, but it is the 10th Planet. I'm going to have to go with it because it's the Cybermen. I love what comes later. It's regeneration, and it's Hartnell's swan song. So between the two, I'm going to have to go with 10th Planet. But it was pretty close. It was much closer than I thought it was going to be.
Can I just say, I honestly think, contentious point here, I honestly think the 60s Cybermen haven't been bettered because they were silent killers. Nowadays, they're just stomping around all over the place.
Yeah, there is a lot of stomping.
Yeah. Well, it's a win for the 10th Planet, so we'll see how it does in future rounds. So we have two more matches in this first knockout stage. Hopefully it will move faster once we get to the next rounds. So match number 7, the War Machines against the Gunfighters.
Oh dear.
This is hard.
It is.
This is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard. This is hard.
I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to think by going first. It's going to be Ip Dip Sky Blue. No, it's not. I'm gonna say the Gunfighters. We talked about this last week. The Gunfighters was maligned for so long because of received fan wisdom. The War Machines is an old one. It was one of those VHSs that was at the start of the restoration team. I remember that it was one of those an extra fold-out flap. No, it's because the War Machines is one of those odd stories in which there's little bits missing here and there.
Oh yes, of course.
And so there's a bit of the battle that they had to kind of reconstruct, and I think they then redid it again on the DVD to make it better. But I remember and I think my brother had this one VHS. I remember kind of that extra flap that you'd pull the VHS thing out and open it, and there's all this kind of stuff about. Yeah, I think I forget where it was found, Namibia possibly. And then the sort of piecing it back together, which I love all of that restoration team.
I used to enjoy reading the restoration team website.
It's absolutely brilliant. I wish they could carry on. But anyway, that's all by the by. So the War Machines, I love the War Machines. It's great. Ben and Polly are great. Poor Dodo. Oh, poor Dodo. And I do.
Alas, poor Dodo.
I suppose to some extent I do enjoy Hartnell basically doing what future Doctors would do, which is the sort of turning up on contemporary Earth and then owning the place, which feels very different from how he acts a lot of the time. And again, it's obviously this is a sort of proto-unit. This is a template for what would come later. And it's the first of 3 stories set on the same day, with Faceless Ones and Evil of the Daleks. So I like all that timey-wiminess of it and all that kind of stuff. But I think just because the Gunfighters has been so maligned over the years, and because it's just so fun, whilst being quite violent, and again, Hartnell's having a whale of a time. Mr. Werp, people keep giving me guns, all this kind of stuff. Previous round we talked about the rescue being Stingray in Doctor Who. Well, obviously this is Thunderbirds in Doctor Who.
Rimmer.
With Shane Rimmer and David Graham. Just absolutely lovely performances from them, and it's another of those sort of comedy historicals that sort of treads that line and ends up being really entertaining. And I don't care that the American accents are terrible. So it's the Gunfighters for me. Michael?
I want to say the Gunfighters because, like you said, you know when they found the 2 Hartnells, the 2 Troughton stories, and then they brought them out, and the Enemy of the World was the one that surprised everyone. It almost feels like they've found the Gunfighters recently, and everyone's gone, actually, it's a load better than you think. And it is. And you sort of go, oh yeah, it's got painted backdrops, but it's good. It's actually historical that I've got a lot of time for, which, from me, that's quite a thing. And yeah, the War Machines is great. Absolutely loved the recent Torchwood Big Finish version where they brought them back, which was just great. War Machines versus Yvonne Hartman, they didn't stand a chance. So I've got a very soft spot for War Machines as well. But, you know, you can only pile up so many massive piles of cardboard boxes for them to trundle through. So, and this is weird for me, I'm going to go with a historical, I'm going to go with the Gunfighters.
Before we go to Tony and Siobhan, I will just add that I'm slightly biased with the Gunfighters because it's the one historical story where I am loosely related to one of the characters in it.
Come on then, spill the beans.
Fair enough.
Well, so my uncle's wife's maiden name was Holiday.
Oh, right.
And she was from Arizona. So, and it turns out they only found out in the last few years that they were descended from Doc Holliday's brother.
That's pretty cool.
So by marriage, I am related to Doc Holliday. Who am I going to let have the decider on this one? Well, it depends on who's going to go for what. Siobhan, War Machines or Gunfighters?
Okay, this is nasty. This is cruelty to elderly women. This is, dear God. What I've been trying to do when I've been voting for these is trying to put away the importance of a particular story, if possible. It's what I enjoy watching the most, rather than, well, it's the regeneration or this, that, and the other. And I, like in that previous round, I enjoy watching the 10th Planet a hell of a lot more than I do the Rescue. Though I concede it's the good points you've made. This one is tricky. I mean, like you said, Bill's on fire again in the Gunfighters, having a whale of a time. Dodo gets to have some action. Peter Purvis just shows a lovely gift for comedy. The War Machines, comparatively, is quite dull in that respect. And a little bit wobbly. And then there's the whole Doctor Who is required thing, which I personally think means that his name is Doctor Who. But suddenly the Doctor is known by certain people in government and whatever. When did that happen? How did that happen? But suddenly, he's name-dropping people left, right and centre, and people know of him. Oh, God. And then there's the song. And I do hate that song with a passion. That's the trouble. All right, I'm going to put the Gunfighters through simply for Bill's performance.
Sorry, it's Linda Barron.
Simply for Bill's performance.
Okay. Have you guys ever been to the website wotan.computer?
Oh, do tell.
Just type in wotan.computer into your bar in your web browser.
Wotan.computer.
And listeners at home, you can play along with this game.
I love the fact that the web browser is saying it's not secure. That's cute. I like that.
Won't spoil that surprise for those of you at home. Well, so Tony, again, it's a dead rubber, this one. Gunfighters is winning 3-0 at this point. Are we going to get a full sweep?
I was slightly surprised.
I was surprised.
It's going to be a full sweep because the Gunfighters is one of my favourite stories of all time. I have done, for reasons that one day will, I hope, become clear, a lot of research on the historical side of the gunfight at the OK Corral, and also done a lot of research into why the gunfight is why it is, particularly why the song is there, because I know everybody hates it.
It's fun to start with, but eventually
the song is there though because the Gunfighters is it's the Doctor Who story, but it's also a parody of film and TV westerns. And if you ever watch the 1957 The Gunfight at OK Corral, that film has a song all the way through it that does the same thing as the song in the Gunfighters does, which is it commentates on the action as it's not as frequent as the Gunfighters song in the Doctor Who story, but it's there as a commentary on it's the theme tune and it's a commentary on throughout the film.
Donald Cotton seems to be either underrated or an unsung hero.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember exactly everything he's read, but mostly Don Cotton stuff I like a lot.
His target books are mad,
and he knows how to do the. And he knows how to do the balance. I mean, the Gunfighters does take a dark turn when what's his name?
Johnny Ringo.
Brain's gone dead.
Rides into town.
When Johnny Ringo turns up. Yeah, who wasn't actually there in the original gunfight at the OK Corral, although he is linked to it, but I won't go into that. So yeah, it's got to be the Gunfighters. I mean, I love it. I think the War Machine is brilliant. It's the first is it the first time they dropped the into contemporary?
Well, unless you
and it kind of fits in.
Or Planet of Giants. For the irony of Planet of Giants is that it's contemporary Earth. But yes.
But yeah, so and it's got a lot of good qualities in it. Ben and Polly are brilliant from the off, I think. Even though they have very odd characters to the way that they're introduced. But it's basically whoever's making Doctor Who at that period going, you should maybe take a look at what's going on in the real world. And Michael Caine's a big thing. Let's get a Cockney young geezer in. there's lots of attractive young. Let's get Polly. Let's get. Do you know what I mean? There's obviously things going on there, and it's very entertaining. The War Machines. I quite like it, but as I said, got to go
Okay.
Gunfires.
So, final match of this round. It's the Romans against the Ark. Michael.
I'm going to stick with what I said last week. Romans, historical. I get what they're doing. Beautiful moments of Ewan and Barbara. Lovely business with the magical lyre. Can't stand Nero. I've spent most of my time going, where's the monsters? It's not for me. Just not my cup of tea. The Ark's got time travel. It's got two-parters that fit together. It's got the security kitchen.
Well, you can't go far wrong with that. Let's be honest.
It's got that thing you always should avoid in sci-fi, invisible monsters.
Hey.
It's got the monoids, a ping pong ball in your mouth and a Beatles wig. You're done. Right? I'm sorry, you're not going to trump that. It's the Ark all the way.
Siobhan.
I'm going to be fairly obvious here. I'm going for the Romans. The Ark's premise is really, really good. It's just not carried out very well, unfortunately. The whole thing about it being the two-parters, and they've come back, spoilers, 100 years or whatever it is, into the future, where the monoids have taken over, and the reveal of the statue. I mean, that's a great moment. And it's a lovely idea that finally utilises the potential of Doctor Who. But, oh God, it's bad. So, whereas the Romans is just... it's just fun. It's just a fun romp. And again, Bill's on fire. Look at that fight scene he has. It's no, it's the Romans for me completely.
Okay. Well, it's the Romans for me as well. No surprises there. And I think the thing is, I'm going to save most of what I have to say for the Romans for a solo video episode.
That's
as I said
cheating.
last week, I've been. Well, no, because there's so comedy. The comedy is brilliant, but there's some really important things to say about the story, and I don't want to spoil that. But it's all to do with the character of Tavius. I think Tavius is for me personally, is one of the most significant characters who's ever been in Doctor Who.
Interesting.
And the way that he relates to Barbara, in episode 1, and you don't really understand why until the very end of the story. There's a lot to say about that.
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it.
Yes. There's a moment in part 1 where Tavius decides to rescue Barbara, and it doesn't make sense why he does that until the very end of the story. And I've got lots to say about that. And also, we talked about Donald Cotton. So I think Donald Cotton is if what Donald Cotton is doing with the novelisation is what I think he's doing with the novelisation, then he's a genius. I don't particularly like the novelisation, but the reasons why are, I think, a really clever thing that he's doing. And again, I'm not going to talk about that here.
Damn, that was so vague. It was helpful.
That is for. Well, yeah, I think if you watch it and then you read it, they're two brilliant counterpoints to, and it's to do with who's telling the story. I'll just leave it there. Because I want you all to go back and rewatch the Romans. And I agree with you totally, Siobhan. The Ark is a great idea that is not brilliantly executed. And I think,
talking of dodgy planets in space.
Yeah, I think the idea is great, and the whole kind of we've left and come back, and because stories didn't have parts, it wasn't like this is the Ark part 2 of
an
whatever.
Ongoing story, wasn't it? You never knew.
It was just here it is, and you didn't know that this was going to be part 2 of 4. You were just that was a quick story, and it's not like they hadn't had 2-parters before. And then it's like, we're back, and there's another 2 parts to go. So it's got some good stuff in it, but ultimately, there's very little that could beat the Romans for me. So that goes through. Okay, so after all that, oh, sorry, Tony. Sorry, I kind of assumed that you would go for the Romans, but yes, go on.
Yeah, you are correct. I do. There are some things I like about the Ark, though, to its credit. And every time I've rewatched it, I kind of like it a little bit more. There are some very good shots in it the director does some very interesting things a couple of times in there with shots through. I can't really explain it, but from like go through people to the more long shot that are quite cleverly done. Invisible aliens in Doctor Who is usually a bad thing, though. And the cliffhanger, it's the end of episode 2, isn't it? End of episode 2, with the statue, where you see the statue for the first time, is very good. And I think it has those things. And I don't think if the monitors didn't have the Beetle wigs, I don't think they'd look quite as bad as they do. I think the actual overall design is quite interesting. But yeah, I think the Romans for me, because it's historical, it's funny. Ian and Bob are at their best.
Having just had sex,
even when they're separated and when they come together. Yeah, clearly, Vicky is brilliant in it. Hartnell is having a whale of a time and gets to the one thing that often gets overlooked with Hartnell. I think we talked about it a bit when we talked about the Five Doctors and Herndl, is how brilliant he is, how brilliant his comic timing is. And he doesn't get to show it that often in Doctor Who, but in the Romans, it's his most perfect. I think.
Talking to say that's it. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it again.
Yeah,
gotta find it now.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's one of Hartnell's best performances in the part, that story. Not necessarily the best, but one of them. So yeah, clearly the Romans.
Which leaves Dalek's Master Plan on the Web Planet as the only draw that we have had. So I don't think it's fair to resolve this any other way than a coin toss.
Best of 3.
Who wants to call this?
If it'll help, I'll take the hit. Go with the Dalek's Master Plan.
Yeah? Okay. Yep. In extra time, Michael comes on as a substitute and Dalek's Master Plan scores an extra goal. Into the quarterfinals, we have the Mythmakers against An Unearthly Child, the Dalek's Master Plan against the Daleks, the Time Meddler against the Gunfighters, and the 10th Planet against the Romans. So back to quarterfinal A. Michael, Mythmakers against An Unearthly Child.
Unearthly Child, gotta be.
Okay. Tony?
Mythmakers.
Oh. Siobhan?
An Unearthly Child, for reasons stated. However, I reserve the right to change my score if the Mythmakers ever gets discovered.
Okay. Right. Well, so I'm gonna say An Unearthly Child as well, but I think I would echo Siobhan because I would be massively intrigued to see the Mythmakers if it turned up. But
that could quite easily have been the final.
Yeah,
yes, I mean I think several of these could have been the final, and I think they both represent different. As we said, An Unearthly Child is playing it straight, whereas the Mythmakers is taking the mick, which and they both.
I can imagine them both existing, and then being, what mood am I in for what sort of Doctor Who do I want to watch?
Yes,
very much.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
So it's an all Dalek quarterfinal.
Hey! Oh god, this is going to be hard.
Yes. So the chase didn't make it out of its group.
Surprise.
Dalek Invasion of Earth fell by the wayside in the last 16. These are the 2 Dalek stories left, and they have met in the quarterfinals. Siobhan, Dalek's Master Plan or the Daleks?
I hate you, Luke Harrison. I really do.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's the way
2
the
great
tournament was set up
Tristan
by Doctor Who
Carey
magazine.
scores. Oh, what do I enjoy the most? What do I enjoy the most? I love the Daleks, but for sheer fun and sheer frolics, I'm going to say Daleks Master Plan.
Ooh, okay.
That was
Tony.
hard. That really was hard.
Daleks Master Plan.
Ooh. I'm going to go for the Daleks. But again, I think
You see, I'm not going to make this easier either. I'm going for Daleks as well.
Oh, back
It's a
to the
Dalek
magic
draw.
coin of doom.
Back to the magic. Well, possibly. I think just simply again, I think if the Daleks master plan if more of the Daleks master plan existed, it might go up in my estimation. I mean, or in fact, no, it almost certainly would go up in my estimation.
I mean, just the episodes you've got show
Canfield was
Douglas
a fantastic
Canfield's
director.
they're both saying the same thing. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. I'm
Yes.
really bad like that.
No, it's fine. Like he was one of the best directors that Doctor Who ever had.
That beautiful scene where you've basically got the sun and it just crossfades over into the light shining off the Dalek dome. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And look at the skin of the
but I
Dalek
think-
operators going through a tiny little gap door.
Yes. There's some great stuff in it, but I think ultimately it has to be the Daleks for me, and we're going to have to duke that out somehow to provide a winner.
Coin toss of doom.
So, quarterfinal C, the Time Meddler against the Gunfighters, Siobhan.
Oh, well, you started with me last time, didn't you? I don't know. Maybe
Just
Did
go
I?
with your emotions.
go with my emotions.
Okay.
Trust your
No,
feelings,
you're right.
look.
You're right. I did go with you last time. Tony, Time Meddler or the Gunfighters?
Gunfighters.
Ooh. Right.
I think I'm going to lose, but Gunfighters.
Michael.
Time Meddler. No more words, just Time Meddler. Done. Boom.
Siobhan.
Gunfighters. And I can't believe I said
Ooh.
that. I honestly can't believe I said that. That was another impossible one.
After all I said in the previous round about the Time Meddler and the Gunfighters, it's got to be the it's got to be the Time Meddler. Sorry.
Oh, no. Here we go again.
It just has to be. Just has to be. Right. Oh, this is interesting. I want this to go the right way, but I'm not sure it's going to go the right way. Right. So it's by far and away a vote for the Romans for me. For that one. Michael. I think I know which way you're going to go on this one, but 10th Planet or the Romans?
Oh, 10th Planet versus the Romans. No. Not for me.
Siobhan.
10th Planet. I love watching that one. It's one of my go-to feel-good stories.
Tony. Save me here.
Oh,
Yes,
God.
okay.
It's gone again.
So, we have 3 draws in this quarter-final round, and the way that I've decided to resolve this is that each of my fellow participants, Tony, Siobhan and Michael, have sent me the name of one of those 6 stories that they want to save, in the hope of breaking the deadlock. So, I'm going to resolve the ones that have been resolved. So, Tony voted for the Gunfighters. So the Gunfighters now goes through at the expense of the Time Meddler. And Siobhan voted for the Daleks Master Plan. So the Daleks Master Plan now goes through at the expense of the Daleks.
That was a hard
However,
call.
Michael and I have both gone for something in D. So 10th Planet Romans is now 3-all. So we've had extra time in that match. We now have to go to penalties. So-
isn't it? Mm.
Oh,
So,
I wish I'd voted
Siobhan-
for Daleks.
Siobhan and Tony.
I wish I'd gone for 10th Planet.
Siobhan and Tony, I think I know which way is that going to go, because Siobhan's going to say 10th Planet and Tony's going to say the Romans.
Fair enough.
So this is the one where we're having the most difficulty in resolving the deadlock. So I think it has to just be a coin toss at this point, because I don't think there's any other fair way of...
Sorry, right, hang on. Which one's the issue?
What do you mean, which one's the issue?
The big issue is between which stories?
10th Planet and Romans.
It's between 10th Planet and the Romans.
Stop doing pertwee
And
hands.
Yeah, you're on your own, sorry.
You and Siobhan are staunchly 10th Planet, and Tony and I are staunchly Romans. Like, I don't think there's any, and we all feel very strongly about this one. So I don't think there's any other way to resolve it other than tossing a coin.
To be fair, right. All right. Everybody has argued across the board except me for how great the Romans is. What did the Romans ever do for me? It gave me some nice moments, right? 10th Planet's important. Yeah, it is important, but Hartnell's asleep for a whole episode. Episode 4's been drawn by somebody with a crayon. That's an exaggeration.
Ooh, that was an interesting sound.
You know what? As someone with a degree in animation, I've got issues with how I perceive episode 4. Everyone did a lovely job at the time, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. The Romans exists in its entirety. Oh, just go with the Romans.
I didn't understand a word of that.
Yeah, well, I think your internet went...
You went into 60s Cyberman mode again.
Yeah. So the listeners will know what you just said.
I heard.
Are you basically saying, Michael, that you want to give an extra vote to the Romans?
Yep. You know what? Just have the Romans.
Are you okay with that,
Daleks.
Siobhan?
I was waiting for the Daleks to win. So the whole system's weird at the minute. So go with the Romans.
Or the 10th Planet. Oh, I haven't had so much fun.
I think we're... yes. Yes. I'm gonna accept that, Michael.
Wow. Nepotism.
No, actually, no. Okay, no, that's not fair, is it? That's not fair. It's got to be a coin toss, right?
It's got to be a
Siobhan,
coin
can you call
toss.
this?
Heads for the planet.
Can you
please.
call this?
Heads for the planet.
Heads for 10th Planet.
Yeah.
Oh. It's a head.
Hey!
So,
Suck that,
10th
tin
Planet
dog.
goes through. 10th Planet goes through. No, I mean, I'm yeah. So I'm sorry we haven't been able to redress the injustice there, Tony. But it's the 10th Planet goes. 10th Planet goes through. For me, the Romans wins, but never mind. So we have got it down. We have got it down. We have got it down to the final 4 stories. Which are An Unearthly Child, The Gunfighters. Who would have predicted that as a semi-final?
Huh?
And in the other one, Dalek's Master Plan against the 10th Planet.
Oh, that's horrible.
So again, I'm going to get you all to message me privately your winners for each of those 2 semi-finals. So I want the names of 2 stories in the chat, and then I will resolve the results. Okay, so semi-final 1.
I think this is the one-sided one. I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tony. It's 3-1
Really?
to An Unearthly Child in that one.
I'm surprised. I thought it'd be closer.
Yes. And Dalek's Master Plan is it's 2-2. So yes. So
can I just say in as if I am a football manager that I am proud and pleased with the performance of the Gunfighters getting to this stage.
Considering
is well above what was expected when we came into this tournament.
Well, definitely. Do you remember how loathed it was? Bentham going, it was the worst piece of stock. He still sticks by it, even though it got found. He still says that Gunfighters is the worst Doctor Who ever.
Well, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, as we are entitled to ours. Yeah.
Yeah, his opinion is wrong, so there. Yeah.
So, wow, I really thought, Siobhan, that you were going to go for Dalek's Master Plan over 10th Planet.
10th Planet, like I say, it's
haven't.
comfort viewing for me.
Okay.
You could whip it out in one evening.
Well, I think we're going to have to employ the old coin again. Who would like to call for their side?
I'll call Tails.
Yep.
Tails for Dalek's Master Plan, heads for 10th Planet.
Yeah.
It is a head again.
In other words, call. Hard luck.
So in extra time, the 10th Planet. Pips Dalek's Master Plan.
What a bizarre
it's not going our way, is it?
It's
not
going our way.
Last.
Wow.
That's remarkable.
In my beginning is my end.
That is amazing. So we have in the third and fourth place playoff. It's the Gunfighters against the Daleks Master Plan, and the final is An Unearthly Child against the 10th Planet. So to discuss these 4 stories again, I'm going to go first to Michael. Tell us what your vote for the third, fourth place playoff is against the Gunfighters and the Daleks Master Plan.
Right. I honestly thought that third place would be going to the Daleks rather than the Master Plan. I want the guys from Skara to come back from, come away with a win. So I'd like them to leave in third place. Gunfighters, fantastic showing from the underdogs, as we've discussed. But, when the push comes to shove, the guys with the talent are going to push through. So Daleks Master Plan third and Gunfighters fourth. Great showing for both teams, though.
Fantastic. Tony.
I think you know what my answer's going to be to this one.
It's the Gunfighters, right?
It is. It is. I'm sticking to my guns.
Sticking to your guns. Siobhan.
Yeah. Now you see, if Marvick Chen sang, this would be a very different result. However, he doesn't, so I'm voting for the Daleks Master Plan.
Right. Okay.
I'm expecting to lose 3-1 again on this one.
I'm not so certain.
This is hard. This is hard. But I think to save another draw, I am going to go with I am going to go with Daleks Master Plan. But I think that is slightly a case of head over heart. But I do think that overall I'm slightly more down on Daleks Master Plan than it deserves because it's partly missing. So I think I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say Daleks Master Plan wins and comes third.
Yay!
And then we're going to go straight into the final. I think it's no surprise to anybody that this is very easy for me because of these two stories. It is by far and away An Unearthly Child that gets my vote. Not a problem at all. I think it's amazing that we've ended up with the first and the last story together here in the final. So I'm going to hand over to Siobhan.
Oh, there's me going on about comfort viewing. I'm with you, Luke. An Unearthly Child. There's a lot to it. More than 10th Planet. And like you say, Hartnell's missing for the third part, plus the fourth part is missing. So it's got to be An Unearthly Child.
Okay. Michael.
Between those two, it's going to be The Unearthly Child. Like I said earlier, it could easily have been Mythmakers versus the Aztecs in the final.
And the crowd goes wild.
Woo! Tony.
I'm almost tempted to vote for the 10th Planet just to make sure it doesn't lose 4-0. But I don't think either of these two are the best William Hartnell stories, but I'll go for An Unearthly Child out of the two.
Sorry, this has been democratically arranged.
You thought it was all over? It is now.
Yes. Well, okay, so
that's a thrashing.
That is an absolute thrashing. I did not predict this when I arranged this little round table of ours.
What did you think the outcome would be?
I thought a Dalek story would end up in the final.
Interesting.
As it did on Twitter. I don't know. It's one of these things where the arbitrary nature of setting up the groups means that there's certain stories that because when they did the Pertwee one, I think you could potentially vote in such a way that you could have made like most of season 7 get through. But the other seasons
one would be impossible to do. It really would. This was hard enough.
So I think there's an arbitrary nature to the groups where you're like, okay. So I think having resolved that in the World Cup with the 4 of us voting, An Unearthly Child comes away as a winner. If you just go rewind all the way back to the beginning, all the stories are back in, including Mission to the Unknown, should you want to vote for it. If you were just voting for your favourite Hartnell story without having to pit them against each other, what would it be? And we'll see how far that story got through the competition in comparison to where you would place it. And I'll start. And I think it's got to be the Romans. I've waxed. I haven't even waxed as lyrical as I can be about the Romans. I love the Romans. I have lots more to say about it, and will do at some point on my YouTube channel. And it's a great performance for Hartnell. It's my favourite TARDIS team. Ian and Barbara are delightful in it. Everybody gets stuff to do. The comedy and the horror wonderfully balanced, and it's a shame that it didn't make it through the quarterfinal due to the trenchant support for the 10th Planet. But that would be the one I would have wanted to go all the way if it was just up to me. Tony.
Probably the Romans. I gave the gunfighters my support all the way through because it was never pitched against the Romans. But yeah, probably it would be a historical, undoubtedly. So I would probably go for the Romans. With the Romans or the gunfighters, I'm going to pick two because I love them both equally, pretty much.
Michael.
For me, probably the one I would, you sat there, you're going, what shall I watch? You're looking at them all on the shelf. I'd say the Time Meddler. I'd come back and watch that time and time again. It's just nice.
Siobhan, I'll let you have the last word.
Yes. Purely for comfort, it would have. It's comfort viewing for me. There are better stories. I mean, there are. I voted for one. But for sheer comfort viewing, like I would go for the Claws of Axos in the Pertwee thing, just for the comfort, the coziness of it. I'm going to say the 10th Planet again.
Fair enough. So your top choice came closest to winning the whole thing, Siobhan. So
style will out.
There we have it. Style will out. Well, thank you so much for indulging me over these 2 episodes.
Thank you.
As we record this, the first episode hasn't quite come out yet. It's coming out this week, and this one we're recording now will follow it in a week's time. It's been a pleasure for you to join us on the UFOcast Does Doctor Who. And as we say goodbye, where can we find you, Siobhan?
Right, either www.youtube.com/Bibble Thruster, Thruster, or we do a live show. In fact, we do several live shows. Wednesday nights we're doing live in-vision commentaries on either films or Doctor Who stories. We're doing Daleks Invasion of Earth. Well, it'll be come and gone by the time this is out. Saturday nights we've got a role-playing game, which is streamed live on Twitch. Sunday night, The Flashing Blade is live on Twitch, and then it's ported over to YouTube, and that can be found at twitch.tv/MacFaddian.
Fantastic. Michael, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Tin Dog Podcast, or just type in Tin Dog and Podcast into any search engine and I'll be there because I've been around forever. And you can also find the things I've written on Amazon. Michael Gilroy Sinclair. I'm the only Gilroy Sinclair in the world, so there you go. Easy to find.
Fantastic.
There's a challenge.
Tony, where can we find you?
Either on Twitter as @Lockster71. That's Lockster, LOKSTER 71. Or my Doctor Who blog is patientcenurion.blogspot.com.
I like that.
Cool. And if you're listening to I think Michael's going to put this out on his feed, but if you're listening to this or watching this, obviously not watching it, if you're listening to this on YouTube or on the podcast, you know where to find me. You can also find me at Luke Overthinks on Twitter and Instagram, where there's mostly more Doctor Who nonsense.
Feel free to comment, but don't abuse us for it.
Yes, and if
a bit of fun.
Your opinions, yes, it's a bit of fun, but I'd love to hear your opinions on where we went wrong or where we went right. Comment down below or on Twitter or whatever.
The fact that 10th Planet made the final is going to upset people.
It upsets me. But anyway, we need to wrap this up. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me, Be seeing you.
And goodbye from me.